AITA for ending my marriage after my wife's open marriage rules revealed her secrets? My name is Marvin. I am 38, and until 6 months ago, I thought the biggest problem in my marriage was that my wife and I had become the kind of couple who talked more about grocery lists than feelings. I live in Seattle and work in building systems maintenance for a property management company. This means I spend most days fixing things that break because someone ignored the warning signs. Funnily enough, I was doing the exact same thing at home. My wife, Elise, was 36. We had been married for 9 years. We were not the couple who threw plates or screamed through the walls. Honestly, that might have made it easier to spot. We were polite, tired, and slowly becoming roommates. We still did Costco runs together. We still argued over whether buying bulk paper towels was practical or just admitting defeat. We still had our shows, our inside jokes, and a shared Google Calendar full of oil changes, dentist appointments, and reminders to defrost chicken. But somewhere along the way, the warm parts of our marriage got replaced by logistics. Most nights, I came home with sore knees and work boots dusty from mechanical rooms. Elise would be at the kitchen island with her laptop open, one earbud in, half listening while I asked if she wanted leftovers. She worked for a tech logistics company downtown, the kind with badge access, sleek glass conference rooms, and people who said things like alignment when they meant permission. For a while, I blamed the distance on work stress. Elise had been shortlisted for a director-level promotion tied to regional sales expansion. She started traveling more to Portland, San Francisco, and Denver. She stayed late for client dinners. She took calls from the hallway. Her phone went face down whenever I walked into the room. I noticed. I just did not know what I was noticing yet. Graham's name started showing up in every work story. Graham thought her presentation was excellent. Graham believed in her leadership. Graham said she had executive presence. Graham wanted her on the Denver pitch. Graham. Graham Voss was 47, her direct supervisor, and from the photos I had seen on her company's website, he had the expensive calm of a man who never had to explain himself twice. He was married too. He had 2 kids, a big house somewhere east of the lake, and a charity golf tournament smile. Whenever I mentioned how often she talked about him, Elise made it sound like I was embarrassing myself. "He is my boss, Marvin," she said one night while rinsing a wine glass. "Would you rather I not have professional support?" That is not what I said. It kind of is, though. So I let it go. That was one of my mistakes. Not because a spouse mentioning a boss is proof of anything, but because I kept letting her turn simple questions into character flaws. Small things changed. Elise used to drink drip coffee with too much oat milk. Suddenly, she bought a shiny espresso machine for the counter and started talking about crema like she had been born in a cafe. She used it twice, maybe 3 times. Mostly it sat there, looking expensive and accusing, while she picked up lattes on the way to work. Later I learned Graham was an espresso guy. She started dressing differently for trips. Not flashy, just sharper. A new blazer. A new perfume. A new black dress that she said was for networking environments. She started using phrases from some leadership coaching program her company paid for. One night, while I was scraping burnt cheese off a baking sheet, she told me she needed space to be fully actualized. I looked at her and said, "Are we talking about your job or our marriage?" She gave me a tired little smile, like I had proven a point she had not made out loud. The conversation about opening our marriage happened on a Sunday night after a tense dinner of reheated pad CEW. I remember the details because nothing dramatic was happening. Rain tapped against the kitchen window. The dishwasher hummed. Elise had barely touched her food. I was standing at the sink pretending not to notice. She said, "I want to talk about a healthier structure for us." I turned around with a wet plate in my hand. A healthier structure? She folded her hands on the table like she was about to lead a meeting. "I do not want to leave you. I love you, but I feel boxed in. I do not think love has to mean ownership." I set the plate down slowly. "What are you asking me?" "I am asking if we can explore opening the marriage." For a second, the apartment felt too quiet. Even the dishwasher seemed loud. I did not yell. I did not call her names. I sat across from her and tried to hear the whole thing before reacting. I had been telling myself for months that we needed one honest conversation. Maybe this was it, even if it hurt. "Are you asking to fix our marriage?" I said, "or asking permission to step outside it?" Her expression tightened. That is a very defensive way to frame it. It is a direct question. I am trying to invite honesty into our marriage. Then why does it feel like you are already halfway out of it? She sighed. She was not sad, just disappointed. This is what I mean. You hear something that challenges you, and you go straight to fear. I asked if there was someone specific. She did not answer right away. That pause did more damage than any confession could have. Then she said, if we do this, we need mature boundaries. Her rules were immediate and oddly polished. No asking for names. No asking where the other person worked. No asking where they met. No interfering with professional life. No monitoring each other's calendars. No making the other person feel guilty for exploring. I stared at her. Why would work even come up? Because you always look for something to control. No names, no locations, and no questions about work do not sound like boundaries. It sounds like secrecy. Her voice stayed calm, which somehow made it worse. Privacy is not secrecy. It is when the rules are built around things I am not allowed to know. She pushed her chair back. This is exactly why I feel trapped. After that night, I spent several weeks in a kind of emotional fog. Elise did not push every day. That would have been easier to resist. Instead, she sent me articles and podcast episodes about non-traditional relationships. They were always the ones that supported her point. She would text me links during lunch with little notes like, this might help you understand where I am coming from, or worth listening before reacting. When I said I was not comfortable, she said discomfort was part of growth. When I said I felt hurt, she said I was centering myself. When I asked if she wanted counseling, she said she did not want to pay someone to validate my fear. The worst part is that for a while, it worked. I started wondering if my pain was just outdated programming with better manners. I was a maintenance guy married to a woman moving up in corporate rooms I barely understood. Maybe I was insecure. Maybe I was threatened. Maybe I was the kind of husband who used values as a nicer word for control. Then Elise started acting like I had agreed. She changed her phone passcode. She stopped leaving her work bag by the door. A shared Google Calendar entry that said, client dinner, GV, became just dinner. She bought a green satin dress for a work event and told me, I thought we were moving toward this. Moving toward something is not the same as agreeing to it, I said. She laughed once, sharp and humorless. That is such a legalistic way to talk about love. One Thursday night, she told me a client dinner would end around 9:30. I fell asleep on the couch watching a rerun and woke up after midnight to a doorbell camera notification on my phone. Elise was at the door, smiling down at her screen before coming inside. It was not a polite smile. It was not a work smile. It was a private one. She stood in the hallway for almost a full minute with her thumbs moving across the screen. Then she tucked her phone into her coat pocket, smoothed her hair, and opened the door. It was not proof. It was just the first time my stomach reacted faster than my brain. A few days later, the first Real crack appeared on our shared tablet. We used it mostly for recipes, streaming, and paying bills, but Elise had forgotten her work email was still logged in through the browser. I was not digging. I was looking for a Costco receipt because we were arguing over whether the paper towels had been double charged. Instead, her email loaded, and the top message was a forwarded Denver itinerary. I should have closed it. I know that. But the preview line had Graham's name and a hotel confirmation, and by then my hands were already cold. The message was from Graham's assistant. Per our conversation, please keep Elise and Graham on the same travel block for Denver. Hotel has confirmed same floor placement as requested. 2 rooms. Same loyalty account. Same floor. Same travel block. I stared at the phrase, same floor placement as requested, like it was written in another language. Every part of me wanted to wake Elise up and demand an explanation. Instead, I took a screenshot of what was visible on the shared tablet, emailed it to myself, and closed the browser. I did not hack her accounts. I did not install anything. I did not guess passwords. I just stopped asking her to explain reality to me and started writing it down. I made a folder on my laptop called 2025 Taxes because I knew if she saw a folder called Evidence, she would turn it into proof that I was unstable. Into that boring little folder went dates, screenshots, card statements, calendar entries, and notes I wrote like a maintenance log. No insults. No theories. Just what happened and when. Once I started looking at patterns instead of isolated excuses, the picture got uglier fast. There was a joint credit card charge for a boutique hotel in Portland during a trip Elise had said was fully covered by the company. When I asked about it casually, She said it must have been an incidental hold and that I was spiraling around money. Later, in a credit card dispute email, I found the boring PDF receipt she had forwarded to herself. It showed one weekend night, a spa add-on, and late checkout. There was a Venmo payment she labeled Team Gift, but the merchant name on the joint card statement was a men's watch store downtown. There were restaurant charges on nights when she said she had grabbed room service alone. There was an Instagram post from a restaurant that had tagged her company after a private dining event. Elise was in the corner of the photo. She was leaning toward Graham with her hand near his wrist, smiling in a way I had not seen directed at me in a long time. One coincidence made me paranoid. 5 coincidences meant I was married to a lie. The worst piece came from Nina. Nina was Elise's best friend from college. She was fun in the exhausting way of people who always seemed to be near drama, but were never responsible for it. She posted everything: cocktails, airport gates, blurry group selfies, and inspirational quotes over pictures of clouds. She also texted Elise constantly. Because Elise had synced her messages to the shared tablet years earlier and apparently forgotten, some of those texts showed up there too. I did not sit there reading months of private conversations. I searched Graham's first initial after seeing a notification from Nina pop up while I was paying the electric bill. I am not proud of how relieved I felt that it took less than a minute to find what I needed. Nina, do not blow this up before Q4. Get the title first. Elise, I know. Marvin is already being weird. Nina, he does not know it is G, right? Elise, no. And he will not if he respects the rules. A few days later, I saw another thread. Nina, once you get the promotion, you can decide what to do with Marvin. Do not make Graham nervous before he signs off. Elise, exactly. I cannot have Marvin melting down before reviews. He needs to evolve for like 2 more months. I read those messages sitting in my truck in our parking garage, the engine off, rain ticking against the windshield. People walked by with groceries and Amazon packages. A neighbor nodded at me like everything was normal. I did not feel single. I felt recruited into my own replacement plan. That was the moment something in me shifted. Until then, part of me was still trying to win my wife back, or at least win back the version of her I remembered. The texts made it clear that Elise was not confused. She was managing me. The open marriage was not a brave conversation about mutual freedom. It was a receipt she wanted after she had already bought what she wanted. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney named Daniel Reeves. His consultation fee made me hesitate. I sat in my truck outside his office staring at the number on my banking app, thinking about how foolish it felt to pay hundreds of dollars just to admit my life was falling apart. Then I remembered the watch store charge and walked in. Daniel was blunt in a way I needed and hated. He looked through my timeline, asked how I obtained each item, and stopped me twice when I started explaining how it made me feel. Feelings matter to you, he said. Documents matter to court. Keep both, but do not confuse them. I told him part of me wanted to send everything to Graham's wife. Daniel took off his glasses. Do not call his wife. Do not post online. Do not threaten your wife with HR. If this matters, we handle it like adults with documents. You are angry. That is normal. But anger is not a strategy. Documents are. He explained that Washington is a no-fault divorce state, which meant the inappropriate relationship itself was not going to win me some dramatic courtroom victory. But marital funds mattered. Financial records mattered. And if Elise was already building a story that I was controlling or unsafe, documentation mattered even more. That last part became real faster than I expected. Our mutual group chat went quiet. These were people who used to send memes at midnight and argue about where to get brunch. Suddenly, no one responded when I posted a picture of my coworker's terrible parking job. A friend named Caleb called me one afternoon and awkwardly asked, "Hey man, are you tracking Elise?" I was standing in a boiler room with a flashlight under my arm. What? She said you are monitoring her movements and making her feel emotionally unsafe. The words hit like a slap, partly because they sounded exactly like her. Polished. Serious. Just vague enough to make defending myself sound guilty. Did she mention Graham? I asked. Caleb went quiet. Who is Graham? That was when I understood she was not just betraying my trust. She was building a character for me in a story I had not agreed to be in. I did not blast screenshots into the group chat. I wanted to. I typed 3 different versions of a message and deleted all of them. Then I called Daniel. Good, he said when I told him I had not sent anything. Now file first. So I did. I moved copies of important documents to a secure drive. I opened a separate checking account for my paycheck within the boundaries Daniel gave me. I stopped paying for anything that was not a household necessity. I communicated with Elise by text or email when I could. And one gray Tuesday morning, while Elise was downtown in a quarterly planning meeting, my attorney filed the petition for divorce. Signing the paperwork felt less like ending my marriage and more like stepping out of a room where someone had been slowly turning off the oxygen. Elise found out 2 days later. She came home around 7, still in her work clothes, holding an envelope like it had bitten her. "You filed for divorce?" she said. I was at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I did not want. "Yes." "You went behind my back?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the sentence had so much nerve it needed its own chair. "You mean I made a decision without giving you a chance to rename it first?" Her face changed. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means I know about Graham." For the first time in months, Elise did not have language ready. I did not throw every detail at her. I did not need to. I said Denver. Portland. Same floor. The restaurant photo. Nina's texts. She sat down slowly. Then, instead of apologizing, she said, "You invaded my privacy." That hurt more than I expected. Not because it was true in the way she meant it, but because even cornered, she still reached for the frame where I was the problem. "You tried to turn my marriage into a cover story," I said. "It was not like that." "Then what was it like?" She looked toward the window, her jaw tight. "Graham understands me. He sees what I am capable of. You just see the woman who forgot to buy dish soap." "No," I said. "I see the woman who spent months asking me to approve something she had already done." Her eyes filled, but I could not tell if it was grief or fear. Maybe both. Maybe for once, those were pointed in the same direction. Daniel handled the HR submission. That was important. I did not send HR a revenge essay. I did not attach captions about what they did to me. My attorney sent workplace-relevant evidence to Elise's company, the direct supervisor relationship, travel overlaps, hotel records, promotion timing, card charges connected to trips, the texts about Graham signing off before Q4 reviews, and Elise's growing claim that I was controlling because I questioned her work-related secrecy. The letter framed it as a conflict of interest and retaliation concern. It mentioned the power imbalance, the lack of consensual relationship disclosure, promotion influence, and the possible misuse of company travel policy. It also made clear I was not asking the company to fix my marriage. I was protecting myself from false allegations and documenting facts that overlapped with their workplace. A woman named Lena Park, the HR investigations lead, responded through formal channels. She sounded exactly like I expected HR to sound: careful, neutral, and allergic to emotion. "We can confirm your submission has been received and will be reviewed under our workplace conduct and conflict of interest policies. We are unable to discuss personnel matters or investigative steps with third parties." That was all I got. No dramatic updates. No secret phone call telling me justice was coming. Just corporate caution. What I did not know then was that my evidence was not creating a new issue. It was confirming a situation the company had already been afraid existed. Daniel found out later, through discovery and indirectly through Elise's own panic, that HR had received a vague complaint months earlier about Graham favoring Elise. It had not been enough to act on. There were no names, no receipts, and no clean timeline. I had provided the timeline. The climax happened at Elise's company holiday awards party in a downtown hotel ballroom. I did not go. I had no interest in standing around with a drink ticket while people pretended not to know my marriage was falling apart. Elise went anyway. Of course she did. She bought a new dress for it, charged to the joint card before I could fully separate everything. When I saw the charge, I just forwarded it to Daniel. Old Marvin would have asked why she needed a new dress. New Marvin knew the answer did not matter as much as the receipt. The party was supposed to include executive speeches, department recognitions, and, according to Elise's calendar before she deleted the details, a leadership acknowledgement tied to the regional expansion role. Graham was scheduled to give remarks. From what I heard later, the room had the usual corporate holiday shine. White tablecloths, tiny desserts, too many people laughing too loudly near the bar, and a slideshow of quarterly wins looping by the stage. Elise walked in thinking the night was about her future. In a way it was. Before the speeches, Graham was pulled aside by Lena Park and someone from legal. Not dramatically. There were no security guards. There was no public accusation. Just a quiet hand on an elbow and a professional smile that apparently drained the color from his face. The printed program still had the awards, but Elise's recognition was no longer mentioned by the MC. Graham did not give his remarks. Someone else did, badly. Corporate disasters do not always explode. Sometimes they just remove your name from a slide. Elise called me from the hotel bathroom at 9:12 p.m. I know because I let it ring twice before answering. "Do you have any idea what you just did to me?" she hissed. In the background, I could hear muffled music and women talking near sinks. "No more than you understood what you were doing to me," I said. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. I did not attend your party. Do not play dumb." HR pulled Graham out. "My promotion is gone. People are staring at me like I am someone who breaks up families." I leaned against the counter in our kitchen, the same kitchen where she had pitched secrecy as freedom. I told the truth in the only room where you could not rename it. "You ruined my career." "No," I said. "I stopped letting you ruin my life and call it personal growth." She hung up. The next week was quiet in the way hospitals are quiet. Elise stayed at Nina's for a few nights, then came back to pick up clothes when she thought I was at work. The security camera caught her standing in the hallway, looking up at it like it was a witness she could not charm. Her company placed her on administrative leave pending review. Graham, I learned, tried to cooperate by minimizing everything. He said the relationship had been a personal poor judgment issue. He claimed Elise had misunderstood his intentions. He denied promising to leave his wife. He denied tying her promotion to anything personal. He admitted just enough to seem accountable and denied enough to protect himself. The man she risked everything for did not choose his wife over her. He chose his reputation over everyone. Meredith, Graham's wife, eventually contacted Elise. Not me. I never reached out to her, because Daniel had been very clear. But Meredith got her own answer somehow, probably because Graham was not nearly as smooth under pressure as he thought. Elise later accused me during a settlement meeting of setting Meredith on her. Daniel looked at her and said, "We have no record of my client contacting Mrs. Voss. Do you have evidence of that?" Elise went silent. What Meredith sent Elise, according to the screenshots that later surfaced in Discovery, was brutal in its simplicity. Graham had called the relationship a workplace mistake in messages to a colleague. He had written, "I have no intention of blowing up my home life over this." In another message, he said Elise was getting attached and that he needed to manage expectations until the promotion cycle closed. Elise had believed she was being chosen. Graham believed he was managing a situation. Divorce Discovery brought the second wave of disgust. The vintage watch was not a team gift. It was for Graham. The weekend resort booking was not a wellness retreat with Nina. It overlapped with a time Graham's calendar showed him out for client development. Expensive restaurant charges she had described as professional networking were dinners for two. Sometimes on nights, she came home and told me she was too tired to talk. Apparently, I had helped finance the betrayal I was being called insecure for questioning. Daniel pushed for those marital funds to be accounted for in the settlement. It was not some movie scene victory where the judge slammed a gavel and awarded me everything. It was spreadsheets, statements, offsets, and tense emails between attorneys. But it mattered. Every charge she tried to explain away made her story weaker. Meanwhile, Graham's exit from the company was packaged as pursuing other opportunities. There was no public firing. There was no announcement saying he had violated policies. Just a polished corporate sentence that meant everyone knew enough and nobody was allowed to say it plainly. Elise resigned before formal termination, which she insisted was her choice. Maybe it was. Maybe it was the kind of choice you make when the door is already closing behind you. The friends were messy. Some apologized. Caleb called and said, "Man, I did not know. She made it sound like you were losing it." I said, "I know." He waited like I might make it easy for him. I did not. A couple of people disappeared entirely. Nina blocked me, then unblocked me, then sent a message that said, "I was just trying to support my friend." I did not respond. There was nothing to say to someone who thought support meant helping my wife schedule a betrayal around a promotion cycle. Others pretended they had been neutral all along, which was almost funny. The apologies came in the same tone people use when they are hoping forgiveness is faster than accountability. The divorce was finalized 4 months after I filed. I received a fair buyout on the apartment lease and temporary possession until I found a smaller place closer to work. Elise and I communicated through attorneys until the settlement was complete. After that, I blocked her everywhere except one email address reserved for legal or financial loose ends. The last time I saw her in person was outside Daniel's office after signing the final paperwork. She looked tired. Not destroyed, not ruined forever, just tired in a way I recognized because I had carried it for months. She said, "I hope someday you understand I was unhappy." I looked at her for a long second. "I understood that," I said. "You just thought being unhappy gave you permission to make me the villain." She did not answer. Maybe because there was no polished phrase for that. Maybe because the door had finally locked from my side. My new apartment is smaller. The kitchen has ugly cabinets, and the bedroom barely fits my bed and a dresser. My work boots sit by the front door on a rubber mat. Most mornings, I make regular coffee in a cheap machine that does not know anything about executive presence. I go to work, fix pumps and valves and busted thermostats, and come home to a place where the silence does not feel like a punishment. I am not magically happy. I did not win some grand prize for enduring this situation with documentation. Some nights still hit me sideways. A song in a grocery store. A couple arguing over bulk paper towels at Costco. A woman in a green dress crossing the street downtown. Grief does not care that you were right. But I am steady. I also do not pretend I handled everything perfectly. I ignored warning signs because I wanted the marriage to survive. I let Elise make me feel small for asking normal questions. I confused trust with self-abandonment because I was afraid that needing clarity would make me controlling. Now I know better. Open relationships can exist with honesty, consent, and respect. That was never what Elise offered me. She offered secrecy and called it maturity. She offered betrayal and called it autonomy. She offered me a blindfold and called it trust. I used to think losing Elise would be the worst outcome. It was not. The real danger was losing my sense of reality while begging someone else to confirm it. Boundaries are not controlling when they protect you from being rewritten as the villain in someone else's lie. I used to think they were walls you built when love failed. Now I think they are doors you lock when someone keeps walking in with a match and calling it warmth. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.